Automating Success followers. I'm real excited, and a lot of times I don't just hit the record button right out of the gate, but I felt like I wanted to change it up a little bit on this one and do that. And the reason is Erik Schluntz is on the show today, and I always do some pre-show research on my guests, but in some of the research I did, I'm going to actually read some of the things I found because something tells me Erik would not have said it if I didn't do it myself. So who Erik is, he's the co-founder and CTO of Cobalt Robotics. He co-founded this with Travis Dial. Yep. Okay. Sorry, I butchered that, Travis. But anyway, they built a friendly indoor security guard robot for offices, warehouses, and data centers. They're Series C. They raised some top investors, including Sequoia, and they've deployed 100 robots to customers worldwide. By the way, if I'm wrong on any of this, you can get into fixing me in a minute, but I'll get to the whole reason I'm reading this. Because I think the journey is amazing, and I want people to understand why I'm so excited to have you on the show, Erik. So they were founded in 2016. They've raised, for my research, $100 million in venture funding to build these friendly security guard robots. And let me tell you, as somebody that's trying to raise some capital myself, cap raises like that, that's impressive just in itself.
It's a tough time right now to raise money, but yeah.
Correct. So I could probably just stop there, right? So then you go to, they operate, this fleet of robots in 5 countries for protecting offices, warehouses, and data centers. Erik leads his engineering team focusing on these new robots. Now, here's the part that now we're getting the good stuff. Erik was named Forbes 30 under 30 in 2018. He worked on SpaceX's flight software, which I almost fell off the chair because, so I got to stop for a second and say, I'm a very humble entrepreneur. I'm always amazed with me starting this podcast. So many people, Erik, are like, what are you doing this podcast for? And it's for this type of stuff, because I would never have talked to you if I didn't have this podcast. Going to work on SpaceX's flight software team, testing an entirely new fuel system on the Falcon 9 rocket in 2015. Google Lex's smart contact lens project. I'm kind of starting to just skim now because I don't want to take up the whole hour in the podcast. But the other thing I thought was crazy is that you dropped to Harvard to start your first software company, and you went through the Y Combinator. So like to me, I mean, people would just want to be in Harvard so bad, and then you dropped out to be an entrepreneur, which is amazing. And then you returned to Harvard, graduated with a master's and bachelor's degree, cum laude in electrical engineering. Let's see, you were co-president of the Harvard MIT robot soccer team, which hopefully we'll get into a little bit of that, so I want to learn about what that's about. And then outside of class, co-president at Cambridge, associate director and the technology director of Harvard College. On days off, he enjoys sailing, skiing, and hiking. I don't even know I have any days off, Erik. So anyway, let's get into it. I mean,
yeah,
an amazing person. So welcome to Automating Success. Thank you for taking the time to be on my show. And I'm really excited for my listeners to learn about you. So introduce yourself for the things I left out, or straighten me out on the way I introduced you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Joe. And obviously, I've been very fortunate in my career, and I think success builds on success. So I've been very lucky. I think sort of you can't make your own luck, but you can control how many times you roll the dice. And I think that's something that I've really tried to strive towards is always make sure I'm pushing forward on stuff. But yeah, so very lucky with that and very humbled to be here. So thanks.
Awesome. So so obviously we can see kind of some of your accolades, things that you've done. So what was your idea behind Cobalt Robotics, right? I mean, doing all those other things, working in SpaceX, stuff like that. What made you feel like I got to make a security robot?
Yeah, sure. So I think after doing my first startup in college, which then got acquired, and I went back to school to finish my degree afterwards, I always knew that I wanted to do it again. I feel like being a startup founder kind of ruined me for normal jobs. And I realized that I loved so much being able to look at both the technical side of things as well as the business side of things, and really find these solutions that combined both, where just an engineer or just a business person would not be able to see that solution. And so that's what really made me love being a founder. And I think after some time at Google and SpaceX, I knew I wanted to go back and start a company again. And I had stayed in touch with Travis Dial, actually, from Y Combinator. He had his own company, and we actually went through Y Combinator at the same time. And so, we'd stayed in touch, have been friends. I said, hey, let's go start a company. And one of the things we had seen in Y Combinator was that way too many people start a business with an idea, and they get overly attached to that idea and end up building something that no one actually wants. And so we really wanted to take the opposite approach of, let's find a real problem and a real customer, and then work backwards to what the idea is. So he quit Google, and after graduating, I turned down my return offer to SpaceX. I was like, okay, let's go do something, with no idea what that was going to be. And so both of our families thought we were a little crazy. We said, no, this actually is the better way to do it. And so we spent the first few months interviewing people in lots of different industries, just asking them, hey, what are your daily problems? What would you pay money to solve? And luckily, one of these people we talked to was a director of physical security. And he started complaining about his security guards and how expensive they were and how unreliable they were, and why cameras weren't enough, why he still felt like he needed to have a physical presence on site for deterrence, but also for investigation as something is happening. If you just have cameras, the camera angle isn't going to be exactly what you need to actually tell what's going on. And that's why he still had guards. And we said, oh, well, this sounds like the first thing we actually said was, can we build these smart security cameras? He said, no, the problem isn't that the cameras are dumb. The problem is that I need to be able to react and respond as something's happening. And we said, oh, well, what if we built you a robot? And we very quickly realized, okay, turns out security guards never go tackle bad guys. They just call the police. It's actually a big liability issue. And so when we realized that, it's like, okay, this actually is a pretty simple task for robots. Observe and report, patrol through a space, never get bored, never fall asleep. These were the things that robots and computer vision were really good at. And we had early on this idea that, we hated call trees. When you call customer support and you have to talk to a robot before you get to the human, we both hated that. So we said, let's make sure we don't end up like that. Let's say that as soon as something interesting is happening, we pull in a remote human to take control of the robot, and that human can investigate and talk to a person through a video call, just like FaceTime through the robot. And so that's kind of where the vision for Cobalt came from, was that you have a robot that's 99% autonomous when it's a boring job, nothing interesting is happening. But as soon as something interesting is happening, pull in a human. And so that way we have the cost savings of the robot and autonomy 99% of the time, but we still get one-to-one human performance where it's really needed. And that's sort of how we came up with the idea for Cobalt.
That's fantastic. There's a couple things I was thinking as you were telling me about that, and even the need for cameras. And anybody that's watched any movies before knows that the criminals start just scoping out to see where the cameras are at. Your robot's always moving, so how do they predict where the robot goes, right?
Exactly.
So that's just kind of a pretty cool thing in itself. Of course, I looked at the website and I see your robots have, it looks like smoke detectors built into them, right? Or something can
get environmental sensors. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have environmental sensors that are constantly moving around. So I thought that was ingenious. So so you identified the need. And by the way, I want to go back to, because even myself, when I did it, I didn't. So this Y Combinator, okay, that you guys are both in, explain that a little bit, because people listening to the show probably are not even understand what that was, what you went through. So can you go through that a little bit?
So Y Combinator is an investor in Silicon Valley, and they are a very unusual investor. So most investors, when if you want to go raise money for a startup, you have to know someone there or know someone that knows someone there. They're all very, very network based. And Y Combinator became really kind of famous for being the first one that literally just put an apply now button on their website. And this was unheard of sort of in the venture capital community. And so anyone with just an idea anywhere in the world could just go click on that button and fill out information about their idea. And they basically said, let's get entrepreneurs really early, before they have this network, before they know all the investors in Silicon Valley. And let's give these people a chance that have never done this before. And it's not just sort of an investment. It's almost like a, MBA program condensed into 2 months for startups. So you go and they give an investment, and it's compared to other investors, it is a smaller investment. When we did it, I think it's $100K, but it's a dinner series. So every week for about 2 months, there's a dinner where all the founders come together from this program, have dinner together, and there's a speaker that's usually a successful entrepreneur that tells some story about a part of their process, whether that's about their fundraising, about recruiting, about building a product. And so it's really more than the money. It's about building this community of people that really help each other. And in that community, it's a really, really tremendous group. There's a lot of really very cool, successful companies that have come out of Y Combinator. Companies like Airbnb, DoorDash, Stripe. And what's really cool is that sort of within this group, there's like a kind of a forum for people that have gone through Y Combinator. And you can ask a question and like the CEO of Stripe will just go answer your question on this forum. It's really incredible. And people in the community are incredibly giving and supportive of each other. And that's, I think, really, really important, is that people realize, hey, startups are hard, at least within this community. Let's all like really help each other as much as possible.
And actually really going to ask the question, because I actually want to go and hit the tab when we're off when we're off the call, I mean, that sounds amazing. So, you guys, you and your business partner, what was his name again?
Travis.
Sorry, I blanked, so I just said it. So you and Travis, you had worked together before. So it's weird. It's always amazing, like hearing, entrepreneurs, how they get started, how they solve, get going on solving a problem. So what did he do at Google, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So he was also on the contact lens project at Google X. And he has a PhD in robotics from Georgia Tech. And so he's been heavily involved in sort of the tech space, both around robotics and sort of really low power communication. He's worked on very cool stuff. And Travis, in his postdoc before he was actually working on cyborg dragonflies. So literally putting computer chips into the brains of dragonflies to help a biology group there study how dragonfly brains work while they fly. So very, very cool science fiction stuff that my co-founder Travis has worked on.
No, that's really actually really cool. So, okay, so coming back to Cobalt. So how do you guys? Okay, so now you have the concept, you have it, it's working. I keep seeing it over your right shoulder there. So who do you market directly to on these, right? So like, are you going to security companies and trying to get them to get your robots so they don't lose contracts? You go direct to the facility. How do you guys go to market?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. And I think early on we just did direct to end customers. To have that really direct relationship. And now we've also been working with other security guard companies. So that they can resell our robots just like they sell a guard to people. And there's a bunch of big security companies, and we're very open to working with a lot of them. I think for us it's a really good to have that mix. And I think especially early on for entrepreneurs, it's important to have a direct relationship with your customer. And then later, once you've really figured out the product and sort of the value that you're providing, then you can go through other partners and sort of distribution partners and channel partners to help scale things up faster.
Yeah. I mean, I found even myself, because I do robotic mowing. I don't know if you probably don't know much about what we do, but I do robotic mowing. So I'm taking hardware, putting it out, and then I'm the service provider using the robot. And what I found is this covers the service, and you're able to tap into a larger client base. So instead of getting a one-off, a two-off, if they have, $100 million worth of business, you get tapped into that. So your robots, like how much, so just as I come from service industry, so like people have watched too many episodes of Terminator, and when he gets shot in the arm, Terminator fixes his arm. So how do you guys deal with the service and deployment and troubleshooting of your robots once they're at a facility?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we do all of that ourselves. We think it's really important to be a full service company where we actually are providing security at the end of the day. We're not just selling a robot and throwing it over a wall and hoping that it works out. So that means we're making the robot hardware, we're making the software that controls it. We're also building the interfaces that our customers use to see what the robot sees. And we're providing those human operators that support the robot as needed. That way the customer doesn't need to have any special training. They don't need to train their guards or their operations center how to use the robot. It's sort of, we handle everything, and you can treat us just like a guard that happens to be a robot. And yeah, a big part of that is also the service and maintenance and repair. Deploying robots all over the country is always fun. But yeah, so we basically, any city where we have robots deployed, we have field technicians that are available to go repair a robot if needed or do preventative maintenance.
So one of the things I enjoy about, because I'm deploying robots all over the country too, is I love traveling, because I get to travel and then also know that when I leave, there's like a little pinpoint with my solution left behind. Do you feel the same way right now with deploying your idea at these different locations?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's in the very early days of Cobalt, I would physically go myself like to every new customer that we had to help set up and test and make sure everything was working. And it's been very cool over the last few years, like when I could no longer keep up at all. And seeing just the zones, I probably dig up a map somewhere, but the map is very cool of all the cities that we have robots in. As customers expand and they want to put us in all their satellite offices, it's been a really, really fast growth, and it's been super exciting to see.
Awesome.
Footprint increase.
So a lot of times people say to me like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how much you travel." I'm like, that's actually my favorite part right now. You know what I mean? Like that's one of the things about, being a founder and like I can make these decisions. I don't have to ask anybody. It's like if somebody tells me that I've got an opportunity, I can run to it as quickly as possible,
And I think it's so to have that direct relationship with your customers.
Yeah. So, okay. So, you kind of, and I'm going to unfortunately hop around a little bit because of so many, all the different things that you did, but we'll stay on Cobalt for a minute. So I'm assuming your original investment, you just said yourself, you only get $100,000 sometimes to get started, but obviously now I see you raised, $1 million. So like, how did those different cap raises go? Because a lot of people that listen to this, they're all kind of like, just so you know, when I'm asking this question, that's like the mystery to a lot of people. How do I raise capital? How do I not give up equity? How do I not give up my idea? And because like, even for myself, that's my biggest fear is like my idea is I'm worried if I work with the wrong person, I'm going to get kicked to the side and I'm gone. So there's a bunch of different sort of things to talk about there. I think I'll start with the idea first, because this is definitely a concern that I've heard from a lot of people that are interested in entrepreneurship. My take on this is that there is very little value in being the idea guy. If you are the idea guy and have nothing but the idea and can't do anything else, you will have your idea stolen. And that sounds bad, but what I mean is that you need to focus on not just having the idea, but being the best possible person to execute that idea. So have that idea, and also you have all the industry contacts to be able to sell. And that's not saying, you need to be an engineer to code this yourself, but you need to be, if an engineer wanted to work on this, they would pick you as the best person in the world to be the business partner on this project. So have the idea, and then also have the sales skills, have the industry connections, have the customer knowledge that you are going to be the best person in the world to work on this idea. And that's what's typically called founder market fit, of making sure that you as a person are the right fit for this company. And if there's a great idea, there's probably 100 other people in the world that have exactly that same idea. And what it's going to come down to is which team can execute best and make it a reality. And that's the hard part. Kind of, the idea happens first, and then there's 10 years of blood, sweat, and tears to actually make it a successful business. And so I would say that for people that are interested in starting a company, focus less on the idea
and more on what comes after the idea of what are you going to need to go get customers to understand them, to build a product, to recruit people around you. That's sort of on the idea side.
So that was great advice. I love it. I'm glad you said it. So on the idea side, so now going off that, so I'll build off it a little bit for you to kind of keep the direction there then. Mm-hmm. So, because the worst thing about having an idea is not having the amount of money to get the idea to fruition fast enough, right? So yep. Now, okay, you kind of said you have the idea and then be able to build out the next 10 years. So now let's go to that part now.
Yeah. So for raising money, there's many different sort of stages that it happens. There's typically now there's sort of what's called like a pre-seed round, which is really just a small amount of money to be able to test the beginnings of your idea. And that's usually raising a couple $100K, often from friends and family or some angel investors. Then a seed round, which is kind of like, okay, this is now a real business that we're going to try out. And then if that kind of success is working, then you raise a Series A, which is about scaling the business. And then rounds after that are continuing to scale the business. I think sort of what, at that very earliest stage of sort of that pre-seed, it's common for people to raise money really just on the team and the idea. And that could just be, hey, these two people, they have what sounds like a cool idea. And one of them is the perfect person to work on it. He knows all the customers that are going to buy it and knows how to sell to them. And his friend is a great engineer from college and has worked on all these technical products and is the right person to build it. And kind of that combo is something that, you can often get that small amount of money just to get started, to raise that seed round. Maybe it's 100K. And you're not going to go straight to raising millions of dollars. You're going to raise just that little amount. And it's going to be just enough to prove that there's this inkling of success in your idea. And that basically is enough to sort of say, okay, let's leave our jobs for 6 months or a year, and let's go try to build the very basic part of this. And let's go try to sell this to, two people that were friends of mine from my old company, but like we got them to agree that they'll buy this. And then at the end of maybe 6 months, you've built this little rough draft version of your product, and you have two people using it and paying you for it. It's like, okay, this is proof that idea isn't crazy. And it's proof that these two co-founders can work together, that they can actually build something, they can actually sell something. And that's when you have that little nugget, that first nugget of proof, that's when you can go out and raise a seed round and say, hey, investors, this isn't just an idea, it's an idea that people actually bought, and we as the founders were actually able to go do something. Give us more money, and then we'll continue to prove out that this works. And that's when you can go and raise, $1 million or $2 million as a seed round. And then it's okay. Can we keep building this? Can we sell this to someone that isn't our friend? And it's kind of about like taking these little steps that prove more and more that the business is likely to be successful. And I think where Y Combinator fits is right at the beginning of that. When you maybe you haven't raised any money, or you've raised, $50K from some friends and family just to say, hey, leave your jobs for 2 months and start working on this. That's when you can apply to Y Combinator. They certainly love seeing either just founders that themselves are very impressive and can go work on something, but they especially love any of those little proof points that you've already gotten. And maybe you haven't even built the product yet, but it's, hey, I went and talked to 10 of my old colleagues and they all gave me a handshake deal that they would buy this thing if it's ready. You can often find these ways to get these little proof points that are very cheap, that you don't need an engineering team for, or you don't need, a lot of resources to get. So figure out in the early days, how can you get these nuggets of proof as cheaply as possible? And then you collect those, and that's what you can go out to raise your first money from.
Awesome. I think you did a fantastic job for my listeners to kind of step them through that progression. I can tell you personally, my biggest problem is I'm at a point where I've never liked the friends and family thing, only because
it's risky. Yeah.
It's risky. And now listen, the last person you want to disappoint is your friends and family over a business venture, So
you need to do that. You need to be very transparent. Like, hey, there's a 90% chance this is going to go to zero. This is not a safe investment. Make sure to, if you're raising from friends and family, they should all know and expect that. And I see a lot of people have issues when they raise money and then it doesn't go well and they hadn't set that expectation correctly.
Yeah, I think the mistake that I've made raising capital for my idea is I've had the ability to use my own capital for my other businesses to seed my latest idea, so it gets sloppy for the investor that wants to come in, because then it's like, if you want to come in, you got to make the other parts of my business whole, and then it's kind of the same. But that's okay, because I'm probably on my own, even here in your your opinion, we're probably already in Series B without raising any money, just using our own capital, So, but I didn't ask the question for you, I asked the question for other people so that they can understand, because there's a lot of people that, the whole part of my show is to inspire ideas and let people get ideas to the market, because I think, that's my passion for doing the show, is to mentor those people. So I appreciate you doing that. So talking about having an idea that you're willing to leave your job for, I want to talk about the idea that you had that you were willing to leave Harvard for and then go back. So take us back a little bit in history, and then we'll come back to Cobalt. So tell me about that.
Yeah, sure. And I'll actually step up or step back even a little further of when I kind of first realized that I might be interested in starting a company. It was actually the summer after high school. In high school, I knew I wanted to go into engineering. I love building things. I signed up for an internship with a founder that had started this very cool company that built. It was a nonprofit, and they built sort of tools for farmers that I thought was really interesting. And so he had been a graduate of my high school. I signed up to do an internship with his company that summer. On the first day, I show up at the address and I'm like, this just looks like a house. What is this? I go in, and it turns out that this company that I thought was this big established company was 4 people in his kitchen. And I just had a blast that summer. It was like the best experience of my life. And it made me kind of realize that even more fun than building a product and engineering a product is building a company that builds a product. And so that's kind of how I first I fell in love with this idea. So going into college, I sort of was on the lookout for what ideas could I find. And I knew, hey, there's a long road of people that have successfully dropped out of Harvard, of Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg. So, okay, I guess this is how it's done. And so, yeah, a friend of mine in college, Meryl Lutsky, and I, we were project partners for a few classes. And actually what started as a class project, we were building like a survey system for the dining hall. We basically realized, hey, there's all these companies out here. And this was back in 2011 when kind of the iPad had first been released. There were all these companies that were asking for feedback surveys on receipts, emails, whatever, and we never filled out any of them. And so we kind of realized, hey, if everyone's asking for this feedback information and no one's giving it, maybe there's some opportunity there. And we came up with this idea of putting a survey right on an iPad and putting it in the physical business. And yeah, this is back in 2011, iPads had just come out. Now every restaurant, every shop has iPads all over the counter for things. This was new. No one had done things like this. And we realized that if you put the survey right there in the business, you would get 30 times more responses than the email or receipt surveys. So okay, this is pretty cool. And we sold it to a couple businesses around Harvard Square. And we found actually we won a business plan competition. And then found a small angel investor who was another Harvard alumni in the Boston area. And so he gave us just enough money that we could work on it full time over the summer. And we got it up to about 10 or 12 businesses using it around Harvard Square. And they were loving it, and tons of people were filling out these surveys. And we were giving these businesses good data analytics about their company and customer feedback. And going from a few responses a week to 100 responses a week, they could now do things like, compare customer satisfaction between different shift managers and things like that, where previously they just didn't have enough data to do things. And so we applied to Y Combinator, and surprisingly enough, they took a chance on us and let us in. So we're like, okay, I guess we're leaving school. And one of the things I'm most thankful for is that Harvard makes it very easy to come back if you leave. And I think for entrepreneurs that are taking between colleges, that's something to look at. And I think it's really important, because I've heard other friends from colleges where that was not easy, and it was a much harder decision for them whether they should leave or not. But yeah,
I'm glad you added that on your own, because that was actually my next question. Like I was going to say, so you left, how does a school like Harvard feel when you're like, hey, nice knowing I'm going to go try this and I'll let you know how it goes, but that is actually really, really great information to have and know. I feel like it doesn't devalue. I mean, if you're successful, you pick up that knowledge and information, because most of us learn. I mean, I'm sure you agree with this. Like, there's only so much you can learn in school, but you learn by doing. It being actively involved in business, doing it, working with other people, younger people, older people, middle-aged people. You're accumulating life knowledge to the actual work knowledge. So it's invaluable, So did you find, okay, so you left Harvard, they obviously brought you back. Was school easier for you, I'm assuming, when you came back? I mean, were some of the classes you said, yeah, I know this already. I learned that in this experience. Like explain that a little bit.
Hey, it was funny. I mean, so I think it was very helpful in that it really did steer what I wanted to do. And I think, when I'd gotten to college, sort of Facebook had just been kind of big and popular. The social network had just came out. And so building apps was kind of the cool thing people did. And while I had a great experience working with my first company, I did have the realization of, I don't want to build websites the rest of my life. I want to do something that touches the physical world more. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to switch from computer science to electrical engineering, and like really kind of focus on sort of these hard pieces of technology. And I realized that was what was most exciting to me. But yeah, I think that like leaving college and working for a little bit gave me a lot of that clarity of what I wanted to get out of the rest of my college experience. I would really recommend it. I think in general, like, I think that especially young people really underestimate or overestimate the risk of starting a company. It's something where even if it all collapses and fails, like it's such a good learning experience. I think it's a really valuable thing to do. But I think one thing that was funny is that, it's working on a startup is also, it's not all fun and games. Like it's a very, very stressful, high intensity experience. And like in this company, before we got acquired, we'd kind of finished the technology and, we were doing sales all day, every day, me and my co-founder, just selling the thing. And so, we were starting sales at 6 a.m. on the West Coast, because that was when on the East Coast, 9 a.m. people were open for business, and doing sales until 5 p.m. on the West Coast. And so it was just this really brutal slog. And, we got a lot of success out of it, but it's a very hard thing to do as a founder. So I think that like people often have this idea of founders living this glamorous life. It's not true. It is like you are doing whatever needs to be done, not what happens to be the most fun. And you're doing a lot of it for very little pay. And so it's this kind of, of course, in this case, our hard work really paid off. And a company approached us that wanted to buy us. They had a lot of the same mutual customers with us, and they've been hearing about us through their customers. So they gave us an offer to merge with them, and like they wanted to integrate our product into theirs. It was a really good opportunity, so we took it. And I went back to school afterwards. And well, one of the things one of my college roommates said is, Eric, I'm scared for real life because of how excited you are to come back to school. And at the time, after doing this been doing sales like 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. for 9 months, I was so excited to sort of have a bunch of different classes and get to explore a lot of different topics again. So I think it's great, but I think there's also a ton of value in college. So I think that I'm really glad I went and did a company, but I'm also really glad I came back and finished. And I think that like the network that you build in college is a very valuable thing. And a lot of people sort of, Peter Thiel talk about college isn't valuable. I think that if you know what you're trying to get out of it, it can be really valuable. And a lot of like the people that we've hired here are networked and friends from college.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so there's my take on that. I mean, so, you're talking to a guy that only went to 2 years of community college for small circuitry and analysis. And here I am hosting you on my podcast, right? Seems crazy, but, so to you, the network you built up in college is a value because you built the network. Okay. So it doesn't make a difference. I mean, I built a network in high school, I mean, you could You know what I'm saying? You could build a network in high school. You could build a network in professional career. I mean, the majority of the reason I host this podcast is to build a network of people, you know? So I don't think we ever stop building a network. I think that every type of education that you can get, it's all what you make of it, you know? So you made great things of your education. You made a network, you learned from it, you were able to leave, adapt, come back. So I mean, successful people make the most out of every situation they have. Some people are fortunate enough to be successful without college, you know, or without like a prestigious college under their belt, you know. So I mean, it's awesome. And I love that you actually said that and added that because to the younger people that do listen, you know, don't go to college just to party, make a network. I mean, even if you're at a party, make sure you keep the names of those people to have a network after you're done, I guess, you know. So now to go, one of the things that I was thinking of too, your friend said, you know, he was scared of real life because you came back to college. But the way I see it is real life is pretty amazing because you probably came back to college feeling a lot better about your financial security at the moment.
Yeah, that is also true. Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're sitting there, everybody else is trying to figure out if they're going to get employed after college. You've already got the payday and you're already dreaming about the next payday, you know? You should have been the Harvard life inspiration, you know? So I mean, awesome. I mean, as you can tell, I'm pretty impressed with you, Eric. So
I appreciate it, Joe. Thanks.
So, okay. So, you know, one of the things, okay, so in selling, so we're going to come back to Cobalt now. So coming back to selling Cobalt. So do you guys offer your robot in a subscription model? Because you said you do a lot of stuff yourself, right? So I can't see how you just sell a robot. I'm assuming it's some sort of a subscription.
Exactly. Yeah. We do everything as a subscription service. And the reason for that is that we want to be as closely compared to a guard as possible. And guards get paid hourly. So we have our robots get paid hourly as well. We aim to be about half the price of a security guard so that customers can immediately recognize value. And a lot of times in buying technology, customers have to think about like a payback time of how long is it before this pays back. And for us, we wanted to make this really easy for customers. It pays back from day one. If you hire the robot instead of hiring a guard, you're immediately saving money, and that's it's just immediately good business for them. And we aim for both being cheaper and more reliable. I think that's an important thing for startups is you can't just be better or cheaper. You have to be both to sell the business.
I mean, I have to be honest with you. Like, I can't tell you how often, since I'm automating outdoor spaces, how often people are like, dude, do you have like a cleaning solution? Like, do you have robot cleaners? And I'm like, kind of my thing. But with your solution, Eric, and literally I'm like, I could think of a list of business after business where I want to get off the phone and be like, hey, I met this guy, Eric, on my podcast. I'm going to send you the episode. You should have his security robot, because all these places I work have these robots. I work for pharmaceutical companies and hospitals and all these places that, I mean, so this is the thing about automation. Maybe we can venture into this. Mm-hmm. So you basically just said you're 50%, people are making a 50% cost reduction, or you could say, you know, increase it. I mean, you could actually say they could double their security with the same budget by having your robot too. So then I have
those are kind of two models that we see. One is it's cost savings, and the other is that, especially now after COVID, people are opening lots of small satellite offices, and they now can't afford to have guards in all of them. So they switch to robots, and now they can cover a lot more space with the same budget.
Yeah. So, but do you find, I mean, so I was on a show floor. This is actually a PGA show because I sell them all. And the guy, I mean, I literally gave him all of the numbers, you know, $5.66 per operating hour on this robot, $3.66. I mean, you and I, we have very many parallels in our business. And the guy's like, okay, I'll let you know. And I said, well, what's keeping you from saying yes? I mean, I basically just told you what I'm going to say to you. He goes, it's like you're selling me a timeshare. It actually seems so good. It just can't be true. Is that an issue you guys have, or is that not seeming to be your issue at all? I mean, are there people that do think it's just too good to be true?
Yeah, I think there's I wouldn't say it's people thinking it's too good to be true. I'd say that security tends to be a risk-averse industry, which makes sense. I think there's a lot of people that just don't believe yet that a robot can do everything that a guard can do, or they don't really sort of trust that it's there. And so I think one of the things we realize early in sales is that if you're talking to someone that just really doesn't believe that, there's nothing you can. That's an emotional thing about a person. It's very hard to change someone's mind by telling them, numbers and figures. And so we have much better luck. We just find the people that get technology, and we find these innovative security directors that, yes, of course, like I've already, automated all my camera monitoring. I've automated this. Like they realize that technology is better at some things than humans are. And we don't have to convince them of that. We just now have to convince them that we are a great use case of that. And so I think that for us, that's been is finding the people that understand the value of technology, and are excited to try it, and selling to those people first. And then once you start building sort of market dominance and pressure, that's when people that are in the late majority, will start to realize, okay, I guess, I see a bunch of my peers using this. I guess it does work. They need that social proof.
And then it's just about a matter of making it easy for them to get back in touch with you.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you, okay, so now you made this, you invented this, you have this. So do you control manufacturing, or is the manufacturing now out? Like, how can it explain that?
Yeah, sure. So we do all our own manufacturing. I'm actually sitting in our Fremont, California office and robot factory. So yeah, we have a big manufacturing floor here and technicians that assemble and put the robots together. Metal parts are machined elsewhere from our vendors. And for our new robot that we build, all the parts are made in the United States. And that's just really helped with keeping supply chain short and keeping us agile.
Fantastic. Well, great to hear you're manufacturing in the United States. That's fantastic. So how many robots, so right now, what's your manufacturing run? What are you guys hoping to make this year and get out into the market?
Yeah. We build in sort of batches of around 100, between 50 and 100. So we can go kind of agilely based on that, based on customer demand. So yeah, it's been scaling up a lot, and also not just making more of the same robot, but constantly putting in new improvements into the reliability and performance of the robots.
So what generation robot are you on then?
I guess in terms of, we're about to release kind of the next major version of a version 2 of the robot. It won't be a huge difference for customers, but it will be a lot easier for us to manufacture, and a lot sort of better at certain things that right now take extra time for our human operators to do. But then there's been probably 4 or 5 minor revisions up until then of internal parts of the robot and making them better.
So I keep seeing that robot moving around. So how many hours a day will that thing move around?
Yeah. That's actually one of our testing robots. So of these new versions, we do accelerated lifetime testing. So that robot there is actually just going back and forth up a ramp and across a rumble strip, and it's doing that 24/7. And so it will travel more miles in a day than a standard one of our robots will across a week. So that way, if something breaks down on that new design after a month, it's okay, that means that, in the real field, that would happen after a year. And so we can go and find these problems early and fix them. So we have a few robots back there that are doing this kind of accelerated lifetime testing of, we make them go faster, and we make them go over bigger bumps than we'd ever see in the field, and lots of fun things like that. And so it helps us find all of these little gotchas and problems that would come out, a few years later. But lets us find them now. And one of the other really fun things is that because our robots are autonomous, normally a company doing this kind of accelerated lifetime testing, they'd have to build all of these other things around the product. Can you imagine doing accelerated lifetime testing of a normal lawnmower? You'd probably have to build this whole jig of the lawnmower getting pushed over a treadmill or something. But because the robots are autonomous, they can actually test themselves. And so we just tell the robot, okay, here's your patrol route, do this 24/7 at max speed, and they'll go do that. And so it's kind of a fun piece of automating our own testing with our own product. That's fun.
I figured because you're such a high value person, you just have the robots guarding that door, and that's kind of like your bodyguard. J-Lo and everybody else is going to want one. Just kind of it's half the price of a normal bodyguard. The price of money, but anyway, so to come back to the thing I was wondering though. Okay, so you think it can go 24/7, but it can't. It can't
Not fully 24/7.
How many hours? Because people work in shifts anyway. So how long of a shift can it work, or it has to charge itself and then comes back after a shift?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And one of our key insights here is that guards don't walk their entire shift. They will do a patrol of the building and then they'll stay at the front desk, because the front desk is usually kind of the highest visibility place that covers the main entrance. And when they're sitting at the front desk, they're not, they're hopefully still paying attention. They're not always. And we realized that we can actually do exactly the same model with our robot. So instead of putting the charging dock in a back closet somewhere, we put it really front and center, by the front desk or front lobby in the building, somewhere that has a lot of visibility. And we follow that same model of patrolling. And we'll do a patrol and check the perimeter of the building. And then we come back and as we charge in that front lobby, the robot is still active. It's still looking for anything out of the ordinary. It's just stationary while it's doing that. And so in that method, we actually can provide security 24/7, because you want to be spending, a third of your time in that front lobby anyway. But yeah, if we do need to do longer patrols, we can patrol for about 6 hours away from the charging dock, and then come back and charge for about 3 hours. But typically what we do is like shorter 45-minute patrols and then top off the battery for 15 minutes, sort of at that front lobby.
Yeah, so I'm glad I asked the question, because it is amazing that. So see, that just shows how, I don't know. I mean, solutions oriented you guys were to say, okay, we're actually going back to the way you got started, right? You asked questions, figured out a problem, built something around the problem, right? Well, now you did all that research and figured out how the units patrol anyways, and you put your charging stations there. That's brilliant. Congratulations on that idea. Yeah. So now looking at that, like longevity wise, so how long do you figure you can have a robot in deployment before you have to fix drive units and stuff like that? Like what's your life cycle on one of these machines?
Yeah. Right now we budget for around 3 years. That was sort of the intended lifespan of a robot. We're actually seeing some robots now that are pushing beyond that and are still operating just fine. And part of that is, if there are certain things that wear out, we go replace them. We don't have to replace the whole robot. But yeah, we do preventative maintenance once every 2 months on the robot. So one of our field technicians will come in and sort of grease the wheels, check the health of everything, maybe swap a part that's looking to get a bit old. And so that's, we really care about getting in the preventative maintenance cycle. So just like bringing your car for an oil change, we'd rather do that rather than have the car break down. So yeah, we really focus on preventative maintenance and that cycle.
Yeah, awesome. So when you have multiple floors, do you have to have a robot per floor, or how do you traverse multi-level buildings?
Yeah, so initially, yes. And then a few years ago, we developed a new piece of hardware that we call the elevator poker. If you can come up with a better name, please let us know. But basically, it's a little arm that attaches to the side of the robot that swings up, and we can press elevator buttons with it. We have a YouTube video of this, and we have a bunch of customers using it. But yeah, basically, when the robot needs to go from one floor to the other, it will go up to the elevator, it presses the floor up button, waits for the doors to open, drives inside, and then uses computer vision to detect where the buttons are and recognize which one it needs to press, presses it, waits until it gets to the right floor, and then comes out. And this was a really fun engineering challenge. We basically had, so when the elevator doors close, you're in a metal box that's basically a Faraday cage. No electrical signals can get in and out of this. No Wi-Fi, no cellular. So when it's in the elevator, it has to be 100% reliable, kind of like a self-driving car. Like it really needs to do this. And there's all these really funny edge cases that you have to worry about of someone getting on, on the elevator with you and bringing you to a different floor first, and then you need to realize that you've gone to the wrong floor, and then repress the button to go back to your right floor. So there's a lot of really interesting engineering to make that highly reliable.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, I mean, I didn't go to Harvard for electrical engineering, but I'm thinking like, okay, A, maybe some sort of timer, B, some sort of altitude sensing. Like, I mean, right? I mean, I don't want to get in any proprietary stuff, but I mean, it does seem like a fun challenge. And then even down to the logic, let's say no one's in there. Okay, you go from 1, you hit the floor 2 button. Yeah. Now you can control floor 2. Now you've got to have this little step up to now I hit 3, right? So I mean, and I think this is the cool stuff. Like whenever I see anything that's automated, I mean, you said about a 10-year blood sweat progression, it's like the amount of work that goes into the prototypes before the people actually see it. And it's the one thing that I just want to say out loud, because there's customers that listen to this podcast. But once the technology's there, I'm going to wait on the sideline because technology always gets cheaper, but they don't understand it. We're not talking about a TV right now. Like there's so much research and development in those beginning machines, right? It's like, how many machines do you think you have to get out into deployment just to make some of your R&D worthwhile? Would you say roughly?
Yeah, it's certainly, I don't have an exact number off the top of my head, but I think the thing for customers trying to decide whether to sort of wait for the technology to be more mature or get in early, the big advantage is that working with startups, even of sort of a big size startup like we are now, is that if you get in early, you can have a hand in shaping the direction of the product. And what that means is that if you have, a unique thing about your business case, if you work with us early, we can help sort of tune to that. And if you work with us later, we might have never seen that thing. And so, it still won't be perfect. And it's really about finding the customers that are willing to engage early, and they can help guide that process and build a solution that's even better for them. And by basically being a technology partner and getting in early. And then that also shows to their peers that, hey, they are an innovative company. They want to be at the bleeding edge. And I think that has a lot of just ramifications outside of the specific thing. It just shows that, hey, as a security director, you're technology forward. You're the one that's actually trying new things and trying to make the company operate better. You're not just sort of a laggard that's waiting to see what everyone else in the industry does. And I think that sort of industry best practice really just means average. And so it's a question for people, do you just want to be average, or do you want to be one of the people in your industry that's pushing it forward?
I love that you said that, and that I'm sure is going to turn into one of our micro quotes. So that's fantastic because yeah, I mean, that you bring up a great point. I never even thought about that with the best practices. It is just, it's a measure for average, like, how do you just do what everybody else is doing? So no, that's great. So I realize time is flying on this podcast. So real quick, before I start to ask about your personal life and things you like to do for fun, because I always do that on my show, is there anything, since I've kind of had a little bit of kind of weaving you all over, is there anything you want to get out to the world about what you guys are doing today, what your goals are in the future? So I make sure you can have that platform for your idea and solution.
Yeah, I think the one thing we haven't touched on yet is sort of the future direction of Cobalt. And that's that we care a lot about expanding beyond security and really helping automate anything in an office building or anything in a warehouse. And typically what we see is that the job of a security guard is both to do security, but they also have these big checklists of other things that we do. And a lot of those are actually around facilities inspection, facilities management. And we really like being able to do all of these sort of boring, repetitive tasks. And we kind of view ourselves as RPA for the physical world, or, robotic process automation for anything in the physical world that involves sort of inspection inspection or monitoring. We can do it with the robot. And so for a lot of customers, that means not just looking for intruders or bad guys, but checking that all the fire extinguishers are still there, checking that there's no water leaks on the floor, checking that, none of the trash cans are overflowing. All of these routine checks that are necessary for a building to be at really high quality, we can do with a robot, because otherwise it's a person that's going around and looking for these things too. And one of the new things that we're adding actually is reception. So especially for a satellite office, the robot can be in the front lobby where you might not be able to afford a receptionist, and you can sign in right on the screen on the robot. And if you need help, you can tap and talk to a live human, kind of like a virtual receptionist. That will be, again, through our operations center. So really kind of looking for all of these areas where there's a lot of monotonous work or people that aren't fully utilized, and helping do that better with robots. And that's what we care a lot about.
Yeah, so the receptionist is a fantastic idea. The one thing I was thinking as you were talking about future, so some of the places that we work at, I know their security guards have to do external walks, like outside the facility. So how do you guys overcome that objection right now if your robot's only inside? And do you guys have any aspirations to get a robot doing outdoor inspections also?
Yeah, it's certainly a limitation today, and I can't speak too much about sort of our future roadmaps, but we're always looking for new things to expand into. Typically what we do is we just look for places where they're a big enough place where they have several guards at the same time, and they have maybe one that does outdoors and a few that do indoors, and we focus on doing the indoors. So I think,
Awesome.
We're a very good complement to human security guards where you have several, because humans have a lot of really good strengths and robots have different strengths. And so it's a very good pairing.
Yeah, great answer. Like I said, I was thinking about it as you were going through the stuff you were looking at. And I was like, yeah, a lot of times they're all walking on the outside. So, I always like to talk about someone's upbringing, their parents, their family, how many brothers and sisters they have. Because, for me, I'm from a family of 5, I'm like the oldest brother, definitely the most vocal, love debating, entrepreneur. I got sisters that are nurses. So tell me a little about your family, your upbringing, and so I can learn more about that part of you.
Yeah, sure. My parents are both doctors. I think early on they really sort of encouraged my love of science and got me really interested in sort of the natural world and science and just understanding how things worked. And from a very early age, they could probably tell I was going to be an engineer. I was always trying to take things apart, trying to build things, and loved kind of creating and also understanding how things worked. And they were really good at that, encouraging me there. I have one little sister, not that little anymore, but yeah. And I think, growing up, I think one of the important things was just having really good friends that shared those interests. And I think that all through growing up, both elementary and high school and college, I think I learned a lot from building things with my friends and taking things apart with my friends. And, more so than just in a class on science or engineering, but like, hey, let's go build rockets, or let's go, build a robot or something. And kind of us trying to one-up each other on the coolest things that we could build, I think is where a lot of real learning comes from. So yeah, back to that earlier point of like, it's kind of your responsibility to learn what you're going to learn. And I think a lot of that comes from your peer group and like just taking the initiative yourself to go do things.
Yeah. So you said your parents were doctors. So what kind of doctors are they? Because that's very generic. So hopefully it'll be.
Yeah, sure. My dad is an orthopedic surgeon, and my mom is a dermatologist. So it was a joke growing up that I was not allowed to have acne because I was a walking billboard for my mom's practice. So I ended up not having acne. And then a bunch of I think I broke my wrist once, but luckily did not need most of my dad's services for but a bunch of my classmates, the joke growing up was that all the boys in my class saw my dad when they broke a bone, and all the girls saw my mom for acne.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. So I see sports-wise, you like tennis, right? Like that's
yeah. I've recently been trying to get into tennis. Yeah.
Did you play in high school or anything? Like
no. I was terrible at team sports growing up. I think I was often more interested in going and building things than practicing any sport.
Well, that's good. That would put you in a really good place. I mean,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
As I've grown up, I realized that there are a lot more fun. It's a good social way to get exercise. So yeah, I've been trying to get back into a little bit more sports.
And so I'm pretty sure, but it's always hard to tell because it's the opposite hand. It looks like you have a wedding ring on. A couple times I thought I said, yeah. So I'm assuming you're married. So, any kids? Just you and your wife?
Just me and my wife for now. We met in college. She's also an entrepreneur. She's the CEO of a startup working on large language models, which are very topical today in AI, and has a PhD from Stanford working on generative models in AI. So yeah, we really.
What does that mean? Large language model? Like,
if you've heard of like ChatGPT, that's
okay.
the most famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. At first, I was like trying to figure out if it was like bridging all the different languages. So yeah. So I apologize. Like I said, I didn't go to school for that stuff.
No.
So, and then your favorite place to travel? You know, do you get to travel a lot? And outside of traveling for work?
Yeah. Probably Park City, Utah. Me and my wife are both big skiers. So we love going and skiing out there.
So big skier this year. Well, actually, can you even ski much with all the snow?
Yeah, no, that's good.
In the Valley?
Yeah.
Yeah, some people I've been seeing on the news, it's like they said it's too much snow. They don't even run the ski list in half the places, you know? So.
Yeah, no, it's not
so, yeah, I mean, where do this see, you know, so you've got the future goals. I mean, do you see yourself in this business, this one now for a very long time, or do you see yourself getting to the point, because it sounds like you're someone that enjoys the startup, enjoys the idea part, getting it going. So do you see yourself in this now for the long haul, or? You know?
Yeah, definitely. I think I enjoy all parts of it. And I think one of the things that's really great about being a CTO is that every year the company is fully different and the role is totally different as the team grows, as the technology changes, and sort of going from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 10, 10 to 100. Each time there's new and exciting challenges and different constraints. And it's all still about that problem solving and combining the business side with the technical side. And that's sort of what I really love. And it's great that as the company gets bigger, there's always new challenges and interesting things there.
Does really have much competition in the space, or are you guys pretty much
I'd say it's friendly competition. So there's another company called Nightscope that makes security robots. So on surface level, you know, yes, we both build security robots, but they have a big focus on outdoor and we only do indoor. So there's not a ton of like direct competition. And I think at this point, you know, it's a new market creation. I think we're both healthy for the other. Like it's good to show everyone, hey, security robots are a great solution and a great idea. And there's multiple people working on it. You know, both of us lend more credibility to the other than if the other didn't exist.
Do you guys, you said it's friendly. So do you guys actually trade referrals back and forth to each other, or how friendly?
I don't know if we've gone that far, but
I mean, yeah. Well, I suppose. I mean, if one can make an outdoor, and they can make it, yeah, so vice versa. But it just seems like a pretty basic, simple collaboration to me. But from an outsider looking in, but I do understand you guys probably have a lot of things that you want to keep in house for as long as possible. So you know, you take no. This is taken as a compliment, actually. You're a young guy, and a lot of times I ask people what they want their legacy to be. But you're so I'll say, what do you want your legacy to be in this space? Because I think that's the best way I can ask the question. Erik, you know?
Yeah, sure. I think in this space, I think what I would really like my legacy to be is for people to realize that like robots are here to be helpful, and they're not scary. Like, I think that Hollywood has created this really bad precedent of like, you know, Terminator, RoboCop, like kind of this portrayal that robots are these evil thing. And really robots are just an extension of a computer or any other piece of technology that just combines the physical world with computers. And I think people like, I want people to realize that, yeah, robots can be a really friendly and like great part of their life and a really good part of the physical world and make everything easier. You know, no one's going and saying that like, you know, thermostats are evil because they control the weather in the buildings. So I want people to kind of have that realization that robots are there to help people and are a really good way to do that.
I've got a bad thermostat story that I got to share to you. You brought it up. So I had a friend, and I'm actually going to say it because I know he listens to the show. So Arjun had a thermostat, and somebody hacked through his Wi-Fi and was talking. I'm going to leave the name of the company out for respect for them, but they hacked it, and they kept screwing with this heat at night, turning it up like 86 degrees. And they were like, yeah, we're in your system. And the guy was like, it turned into this huge thing. He actually helped the company figure out how to build firewalls so this could never happen.
Wow. Yeah.
So there was just ironic. I just had to add it because you brought up the thermostat. And then the other thing I have to add, because I didn't even think about it, but you made a RoboCop. Like, I didn't even think about it when I brought you on the show.
But very friendly, and no physical force. We don't. There's no. Anything that happens.
You're going to make like a human cyborg.
Yeah, it's fine. We've stopped a few real break-ins, which are very exciting. But again, no physical force. We just call the police if anything happens. Actually, one of my favorite stories there is I think within the first week at a new customer, we caught that a ring of their own security guards had been stealing from the company. And so it's kind of one of those things where you realize that, yeah, robots that can't steal are pretty good. Don't fall asleep, don't steal things. Robots are a pretty good technology.
Because the robot couldn't get cut in and turn into the friend group that split up, divvied it up,
Exactly.
And actually, you just made me realize, I think I'm going to start my podcast with tell me some cool stories about your tech. And then we could have probably taken the whole show talking about the stories and stuff that's happened. And I do actually think it's pretty crazy. Usually I end with the legacy question, so my listeners are probably like, where's the show going? Because he's still going right now. But it's amazing to me that your robot actually stopped a couple break-ins. So when it does that, does it even alert the person, or does it just kind of stop moving and make the phone call?
Yeah, so it's, again, all about investigation, because you don't know from the beginning, and we don't want to ever cause a false positive of, call the police when it's not necessary. So in one of the cases, one of our customers, their door locks malfunctioned. And this is another example of like why people still have guards or robots, is that you can't rely on fixed infrastructure. There's always going to be something that breaks, and you need some part of your system that's dynamic and can respond to whatever those changes are. So their door locks stopped working, and their doors swung open to the streets of San Francisco at about 2 a.m. And I think within an hour or two, someone had come in and was looking around probably for things to steal. Our robot detected them, and it video called in one of our human operators. And they said, "Hey, excuse me, can I see your badge? It's after hours." And the person was immediately like, "Oh, what badge? I'm lost." And so in the background, we were calling police and trying to sort of keep this person engaged and not realize that something was happening. So lots of stories like that. A lot of times break-ins are more about social engineering than someone in a ski mask and a crowbar.
Yeah, that's actually amazing, because that's another thing that I think Hollywood makes everybody think differently.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, they're much more common. It's someone that's has a polo shirt on.
I'm caught. I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't know. I don't even know how I got here.
Exactly.
Type of scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to worry about the risk or the loss of life to actually keep them engaged and ask the question. So even if you are dealing with someone that's a little bit insane, right, and doesn't have any value to life, there is no life there to be taken. The robot is completely replaceable.
Exactly. It's a big reduction in risk. And, for some of our customers, we participated in active shooter drills with them. And again, it's this incredible thing that you can now not put a person's life in danger and say, "Hey, drive the robot over. We need to figure out where this person is." I actually remember from this active shooter drill that we did, the person that was playing the role of the active shooter was kind of so surprised that they had never seen a robot moving around. It actually really helped it. Both it gave the team situational awareness of what was happening, as well as kind of really slowed this person down because they were just so confused about what they were seeing. It's a really good deterrent. But again, a lot of security is less about stopping the bad guy and more about finding all the little lapses in security that let the bad guy in the first place. And that's catching that all the doors are closed, checking that the windows are locked. It's all these little things that add up to good security.
Yeah, no, that's really something. I just want to bring up too. I was thinking as you were talking about no human, you don't have to worry about the human getting hurt with security. Something that never gets talked about enough with automation, but how it can really help with workman's comp cases and work comp rates. So if you're like going to go with security companies that already exist, you have to offer them a value just in that aspect alone, because that can be kind of their front line in kind of like investigation without putting the human in harm's way first.
Yeah, there's that. The other big one of cost savings for them is that if a security guard calls out sick, a lot of times they'll need to cover for that and then pay someone else overtime to go do that extra shift. And so there's a ton of both, again, increase in reliability and decrease in cost that really sort of meld really well together for us working with security companies.
Well, what's really cool for me is when I'm going around to the places that I sell into and I see one of your Cobalts, I'm going to know I talked to one of the people that had the original idea. It's going to be really inspiring for me to see it, be able to tell people I know it. And I am going to tell you, I am going to start referring you out to some of my facilities that ask
please
me
do.
if
We'd love to chat
indoor space. So, yeah, after the show, you'll have to just send me something. Just say, hey, send the links to here. Here's or I can send them right to the website. Actually, I already saw there's a way to contact you. So, it was fantastic having you on the show, Erik. Tell your co-founder and partner, very impressive what you guys are doing.
Appreciate it.
And I'm inspired at how young you were when you decided to take the deep dive into being an entrepreneur. So congratulations there.
No, thanks so much, Joe.
Awesome. Thanks, Erik.